Welcome to this program presenting Marta Morales Naranjo and her doll portraits of Purépecha life. 85-year-old Marta Morales Naranjo of Uruapan, Michoacan, Mexico, has been creating dolls of the Tarascan indigenous people of the state of Michoacan since her early teen years. The state of Michoacan, located west of Mexico City in central Mexico, has been the homeland of the Tarascan people, or Purépecha as they call themselves, for over 1,000 years, and it seems their unique language is unrelated to any other in the world. At the height of their power, the Aztecs were unsuccessful in their attempts to conquer the Tarascan Empire. Eventually, this would be done by the Spanish invaders in the 16th century. When she was a young child of about 5 years old, Marta became fascinated by Christmas nativity scenes she saw in homes and store windows, such as the ones shown here. At about 10 years of age, her interest in religious figures evolved into a desire to actually create nativity scenes herself and to construct dolls of Old Testament characters such as Moses. When Marta was 12 years old, one of her aunts suggested she make dolls of the Tarascan women of the surrounding area, and she started to sell these dolls among the arched portals of Uruapan's town square. Here we see an overview of Uruapan. By the age of 20, Marta was selling her dolls at the Huatapere Museum of Popular Art, seen here, a large arts and crafts museum in Uruapan. Many of Marta's dolls portray activities from the island of Janitzio, pictured here, such as a Day of the Dead altar at a cemetery, and a woman arranging her Day of the Dead altar at home. In the marketplace, we see pottery and Lake Pátzcuaro whitefish for sale, and also palm frond vendors. Marta's dolls portray these activities and more. Several of Marta's dolls are dressed in festive costume for unique Tarascan celebrations, such as those pictured here. Through the years, Marta's keen observations of the Tarascan people performing their ordinary daily tasks and participating in ceremonial functions have been translated into meticulously crafted dolls that mirror these activities. She accurately replicates the Tarascan traditional indigenous clothing of finely embroidered blouses, wool pleated wraparound skirts, hand-woven belts and rebosos, and festive and daily aprons. Each figure is a testament to Marta's artistic skill. She begins with a wire framework and forms a body of cloth stuffed with cotton. Braided hair, beaded jewelry, layers of garments, and the many different accessories are then added. During Marta's many years of doll making, her aunt, Maria del Carmen Morales, often worked alongside Marta, contributing her many sewing skills to the doll production. 100-year-old Maria del Carmen unfortunately passed away in 2009. Here is an example of an embroidered daily apron of the type many Tarascan women use, and we will see several of Marta's dolls wearing this style. Her attention to detail and authenticity has earned Marta the distinction of Great Master of Mexican Folk Art by Fomento Cultural Banamex, an organization founded by the National Bank of Mexico and financial group Banamex to preserve Mexican culture. One of their projects was a 2-year search to identify the best folk artists throughout Mexico and to collect and exhibit their work. Marta has been included in this group of highly talented individuals, and her dolls have been exhibited in Mexico, the United States, and Europe. She is included in Banamex's large, beautifully illustrated book, Great Masters of Mexican Folk Art, profiling the work and lives of the most talented artisans of Mexico. Marta's dolls, documenting the way of life of an entire people, are her legacy to the world of ethnic doll enthusiasts. Miss Morales is pictured here in the front patio of her home in Uruapan in 2007. All of Marta's dolls in this presentation were created circa 1984, with the exception of a few that date from 2007, and those will be identified during the program. The average height of the standing dolls in the program is 7.5 inches to 7.75 inches. Before beginning this tour of Marta Morales' creations, it will help to view the general map of Mexico, showing the state of Michoacán in orange. The black dot to the right is the site of Mexico City. This map of Michoacán shows the location of Marta's hometown of Uruapan and other areas that will be mentioned during the presentation. Morelia is the state capital. We begin the tour of Marta's work with 4 female dolls. In general, the traditional clothing of the Tarascan women include embroidered blouses, heavy wool pleated wraparound skirts, hand-woven rebozos, and festive and daily aprons. Styles do vary from town to town, as will be illustrated here. The lady pictured here represents a woman from the Uruapan area, and we see both front and back views of this traditional outfit with its distinctive styles of blouse, apron, and skirt. Next, we have front and back views of a doll wearing the costume of Tarecuato, a town located in the highlands northwest of Uruapan. Marta explains that this elaborate costume is the everyday outfit. The skirt of black wool is woven on the backstrap loom and is worn tightly pleated at the back. Woven belts wound about the waist hold the skirt in place. Within the state of Michoacán years ago, a more extreme version of this style of skirt existed, with the pleats reaching almost all the way up the woman's back. This is one of the dolls made in 2007. This doll wears a style of rebozo made in the Paracho area, north of Uruapan. It's woven of cotton on the backstrap loom. Strands of artificial silk are incorporated into the knotted fringes. It is thought this technique is left over from ancient featherwork for which the Tarascans were famous. An actual rebozo of this type is displayed here. This doll wears a very old traditional style of costume from the town of Guanajo, located not too far from Pátzcuaro. Marta has given 2 explanations concerning the outfit. One is that it's worn by the women of the town only on Sundays or for special occasions. Also, it's used by the young lady chosen as the town's queen. On market days, the different villages and towns of Michoacán are bustling with activity. A variety of vendors engage in lively conversation with their customers, and Marta's dolls capture this colorful atmosphere. This first doll represents a man on his way to a market to sell sweet corn. The following doll is a man from San Lorenzo, a town of the highlands north of Uruapan. He has recently harvested his blue corn and takes it to sell at the market. This is one of the dolls Marta made in 2007. This woman is selling atole at the San Lorenzo market. Atole is a thick cornmeal beverage with a creamy consistency. In the San Lorenzo area, atole is made from dark corn. This woman cooks and sells tamales at a market. The next doll is also a tamale vendor. Tamale wrappings are usually corn husks or banana leaves. Here we see a woman carrying her child on her back. She has an armful of fresh green corn leaves for making a special type of tamale. This Tarascan woman is carrying chickens to sell at a market. This man selling birds comes from the town of Tancítaro, west of Uruapan. Seated here is a man who makes and sells huaraches. This is one of the dolls made in 2007. Presented here are front and back views of a man returning home from the marketplace, with his purchases carried on his back in a wooden crate. This woman has purchased poinsettias to decorate the altar of her home's small shrine. The poinsettia is native to Mexico and originated in the Taxco area of the state of Guerrero. Here is a woman returning home from the market after purchasing calla lilies for the altar of her home shrine. Marta's explanation for this doll is that she's taking flowers to her village. The two following men are pottery vendors from Capula, a small village located between Morelia, the state's capital, and the town of Pátzcuaro. A majority of the people of Capula are engaged in pottery production. The tradition of painting with tiny dots, known as punteado, has been a signature of this town's pottery for generations. This pottery seller comes from the town of Santa Fe de la Laguna, near the shore of Lake Pátzcuaro. This town's pottery has a black glaze. This pottery vendor comes from Patamba, also known as Patamban, a village located fairly close to the Paricutin volcano. Patamba's pottery is known for its green glaze. This man is selling a large type of pottery called a cazuela, and he also comes from Patamba. In several areas of Mexico, there are still men who specialize in making palm leaf rain capes, such as the one this figure wears. This doll represents a man from the highlands north of Uruapan, who carries a gourd that was dried, hollowed out, and then filled with water, acting as a canteen. A cord is tied around the middle of the gourd for carrying. Here is a guitar player from a town such as San Lorenzo, north of Uruapan, and is one of the dolls made in 2007. This elderly couple gathered charcoal in a mountain forest and took home flowering plants called epiphytes that they collected from the trunks of trees. Marta's details even include the smudges from the charcoal on the couple's clothing. These dolls represent a Lake Pátzcuaro fisherman and his wife, who carries a basket full of the unique Lake Pátzcuaro whitefish. However, fishermen from the lake area now have a more difficult time earning a living, as there is less oxygen in the lake for the fish. Chemical fertilizers entering the water from nearby farms and silt buildup from soil erosion due to surrounding deforestation have had a negative impact on the lake. Here we see two views of the dance of the Lake Pátzcuaro whitefish. Lake Pátzcuaro, at an elevation of 7,000 feet, is said to be the highest body of water in Mexico. The fishing industry of the lake has been economically important to the area for generations, especially that of the lake's unique whitefish. Unfortunately, due to overexploitation and lake pollution, the species is presently endangered. The Tarascan people, dressed in traditional clothing, perform this dance in honor of the lake and its fish, so important in their lives. Holding the net, women on one side and men on the other, they dance, trying to trap the fish in the net. Men weave and sell elaborate palm frond work in the market or in front of the church for Palm Sunday celebrations. This woman has purchased and decorated with flowers a woven palm creation. She goes to church on Palm Sunday to have it blessed, and also stops to buy a glazed ceramic jug. These two dolls are young women called aguadoras, or water bearers, and the back view of one is also pictured. On Holy Saturday, the day before Easter, a colorful procession takes place in the city of Uruapan. Young ladies in traditional costume parade through the streets, balancing on their heads large clay vessels from the pottery-making town of Patamba. These vessels contain water that has been blessed, and they have been lavishly decorated with a variety of objects, including fruit, candy, and flowers, suspended from a net encircling the clay pot. An angel is always placed at the very top. Celebratory activities continue throughout the city for the remainder of the day. These dancers from the village of Calzoncin, near the city of Uruapan, present the dance of the Chilinchilichas. Before the arrival of the Spaniards, this dance was performed for one of the Purépecha gods and for Calzoncin, last king of the Tarascan Empire. After the Catholic faith was introduced, this dance was performed for the Feast of the Holy Trinity. Then, after 1852, the dance disappeared for many years as no group continued to present it. Long after, some very elderly ex-dancers revived the dance for new generations of Tarascans. Next, we have several views of Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead activities, celebrated in Mexico on All Saints' Day, November 1st, and All Souls' Day, November 2nd. The observances on these days blend Christian and pre-Hispanic customs. It is a time to remember and honor loved ones who have passed away. It's a time of both joy and sorrow. Home altars are created on which photos of the deceased are placed, along with candles, food, and flowers, thus welcoming back the souls of the departed. There are also graveside vigils, perhaps the most famous being those held on the island of Janitzio, in the middle of Lake Pátzcuaro. In preparation for Day of the Dead, the next three vendors sell traditional items for this special time. The first woman is a flower vendor. The next woman also sells flowers, marigolds, the traditional flower of the dead. It's believed this flower can help guide the souls of the deceased back to their homes, so a path of marigold petals leading to the home is made by family members. A profusion of marigolds is also used to decorate home altars and graves. The special grave arrangements are called ofrendas. This woman sells pan de muertos, special Day of the Dead bread, a sweet bread made with flour, butter, sugar, eggs, orange peel, anise, and yeast. The bread comes in different shapes, human and animal. One traditional type is decorated with a raised circle of dough on the top, representing the skull, and strips of dough representing bones radiate from this raised circle. These special breads are placed on home altars and on graves during Day of the Dead activities. This following photo shows two actual types of Day of the Dead bread. On the island of Janitzio, on the night of November 1st, a woman kneels and prays at the grave of a loved one. Here we see two views of her arrangement or ofrenda for the deceased, a type unique to this area. It's made of a wooden arch decorated with marigolds, fruit, and other items. Next, we have a selection of Marta's dolls representing two well-known traditional dances from the Uruapan area and other towns of Michoacán. First, we have the Viejito dance, or dance of the little old men. Masks representing caricatures of old men are actually worn by youth who imitate the slow movements of the elderly, then suddenly switch into energetic and amusing steps, much to the enjoyment of the crowd. This dance is traditionally performed during certain holidays of the year and to fulfill vows, but it's now become a favorite attraction for tourists. The Viejito dance probably had its beginnings in pre-Hispanic times, honoring the old fire god, pictured as a bent, smiling old man. We see a group of people gathering at a little plaza in the city of Uruapan to watch Viejito dancers, with a close-up view of one of them. The entire Viejito costume is displayed on this mannequin. Next is a doll Marta has created representing a mask carver, and he's working on a Viejito mask. We continue with dolls performing the dance of the negritos, or black men. Slaves from Africa were brought to Mexico during colonial times, and the indigenous people held them in awe and believed they had special powers. The first negrito dances grew out of religious brotherhoods of blacks dedicated to the Virgin Mary, the members of which wore elegant and exotic costumes. Today, the dancers serve in different capacities according to the circumstances of the particular celebration. They may act as clowns, or control crowds, or sing and dance in honor of religious figures. The most unique element of the negrito costume is the mask. Negrito masks vary throughout Mexico, but perhaps the most outstanding is the mask style of Uruapan, with its aquiline nose and twisted and forked beard. An actual mask is shown here with its headdress of sheepskin, measuring 40 inches when stretched out, and its ribbon streamers are 45 inches long. The masks are painted with a black lacquer, a unique technique. This particular mask is the work of Uruapan's renowned mask maker, Victoriano Salgado Morales, who is a relative of Marta. He's photographed here in the work area of his home. Marta's masterwork brings this presentation to its conclusion. She has created a carro alegórico, or float, of the type that participates in the festival of La Magdalena, or Mary Magdalene barrio of Uruapan. Marta considers this to be her masterpiece. This is the only float she has ever made, and she says she will never create another. Marta explains that Uruapan, Michoacán, was founded in 1533, and the Magdalena was one of the original barrios of the city. The feast day of Mary Magdalene is July 22nd, and the barrio's fiesta takes place on July 22nd and 23rd every year. There is a parade through the barrio with floats pulled by yokes of adorned oxen, accompanied by negrito dancers, farmers, musicians, a large number of women in traditional costume dancing to the music, and others. This float carries the queen of the barrio and her attendants, dressed in the traditional costume of Uruapan. The oxen are guided by a farmer with his long stick, decorated in this case with a stuffed squirrel, but the stick could also be adorned with flowers or bows. The total length of the float, which includes the oxen, is 24 inches, and it measures 14¼ inches at its highest point. Marta is thrilled that her life's passion has been internationally recognized. Presently, at the age of 85, Marta continues with her doll making, and she says she plans to do so as long as the good Lord gives her agile hands and sufficient eyesight. May she continue bringing the traditions of the Purépecha people to life through her doll creations for many years to come.